Welcome to A Good Pour. This is conversations about the good work in our community through businesses and nonprofits. Today we have Pastor Derrick Jackson with us, who is the pastor of First Baptist Church Gallatin on Winchester Street. Welcome, Pastor. Great to have you.
Glad to be here. Fresh off a vacation, so glad to be here.
So tell us where you went.
Well, my wife and I and a couple of friends, we went to Europe. So we went to Rome, Italy. We went to Paris, France, London, England, Florence, Italy. So I'm still trying to get it back together.
I bet. Did you take a car, train, plane between those? Okay, so when you went between cities in Europe, you flew.
Right. Now to London, we took a train. A train from Paris to London. And we flew a short little trip, actually, from Rome to Paris. But when I say it was an exciting time, it was an exciting time.
Was that your first time to Europe?
First time out of the country.
Oh,
and first time to Europe, yeah.
You went all out.
Yeah, well, my wife, she deserves it.
She does.
That's it. Laura Jackson, she has put up with me now. If the Lord blesses us to see August of this year, August the 17th, 27 years of marriage. So I'm grateful.
Good. Well, I have invited you here today. This is our first series of A Good Pour Conversations. Okay. And you came to mind specifically because a couple years ago, we started working together with what we're now calling Together Sumner, which is a group really based in the church, but is inviting anyone in at this point that wants to talk about racial healing in Sumner County. And for me personally, about probably 4 years ago or so, I started looking around and realizing everyone looked exactly like me, and I wanted to change that. And I began praying for that. I said, I needed to break out of this bubble, and I didn't really know how. And about that time, I was invited to what is now called Together Sumner, but we didn't have a name at the time.
Right.
And you invited me in, and as really the leader of the group, but also the welcomer. I think sometimes when we enter new situations, we can feel like we're going to do something wrong or we're going to say something wrong. And you just made it very obvious that we were welcome no matter what we said or did, that we were gathering together in love. And it just has been a tremendous journey for me over the past couple of years to be involved in this. And so I wanted to sit down and talk about the good work you're doing through your church, but also through Together Sumner. Okay. So tell us about it. What is the good work you feel like you're doing in this community?
I think it's probably multifaceted, and of course by the grace of God. Of course, Pastor First Baptist has been a staple in Gallatin since 1865, and the church has only had 6 pastors. I'm the 6th pastor in that long history of pastors. And this October will make 22 years for me as pastor of that congregation. So it's been a blessing.
Yes.
Part of the vision for Together Sumner came out of our work, leadership of the church, and our desire to see the kingdom of God more reflected, and not just within the 4 walls of the church.
Right.
But the kingdom of God reflected just in society in general. And so First Baptist has had a wonderful presence in Gallatin, Sumner County for a long time. Its people, it influences people all over the place from every walk of life. And we like to tag ourselves as a church of welcome. And so we don't care who you are, what your background is, what your socioeconomic status may be, what your political persuasion may be, your ethnicity, your race, any of that. Hey, we welcome you, and we walk this thing out together, not trying to be perfect or legalistic, but just trying to love on people as Christ loves people. And the church has been getting a bad rep these days, the Big C church, in terms of the culture is looking for direction, looking for answers. And unfortunately, we in the church, in our little tribes, whatever our tribes may be, to me, we've kind of insulated ourselves from where the action is, which is the opposite, I believe, of what Jesus would do.
Right.
And so I think, we've hid behind our stained glass windows or our more modern facilities or our dogma or our denominational teaching and training or what's comfortable for us. So you have this historically, predominantly African American congregation opening her arms up to anyone, and so just navigating those waters has it's been exciting. Yeah. It's been exciting to us.
So tell me about an example of good work that you feel like that the church has done, or you feel like I can name some, but tell me some example of some good work.
I think one is the Stay Warm Shelter that we actually facilitate through Unlimited Potential, CDC. There are more homeless people than we would realize or care to think of. And what we've done, and at least tried to bring some attention to it in those coldest months, open up our gym for persons to come, at least on the weekend, have a place to stay, to get out the weather. Deborah Austin Barr, she's the visionary for that outreach, and she's like a one-person wrecking crew. But just to love on those persons, it's been a blessing for us. Of course, we also do several other things, whether it relates to kids, at-risk kids, through the summer camp of Unlimited Potential, just loving on the Clearview community. Gallatin is growing.
Yes.
But there are areas I feel that are still neglected. And so the church has tried to bring some attention to those areas as well.
Yeah. So the church has lots of work to do always.
Yes.
Yes. But it's also a business. You still have to pay your staff. You have to be paid too. Yes. There's things. The lights have to stay on. So how do you balance, especially in the church? How do you balance the good work that we all want to do, but also maintaining, a profitability, or maybe not profitability, but you're not in the hole kind of thing. You're in the black.
You got a lot of people who love to give. Yeah. They give of their time. They give of their talent, their treasure, and their testimony, as we say in church lingo or church language. Many families in the church would take kids themselves and mentor those kids, work with those kids, or the elderly, just in terms of educating the elderly on what services are available, partnering with other agencies like the Gallatin Shalom Zone, and other wonderful work, Good Neighbor Mission when it was in existence, United Way even now, just the Chamber of Commerce, and Kim Baker and others, just to let people know, hey, we're here, we want to help. We got a lot of generous people in the church that help keep it going. And by the grace of God, and I am a working pastor, and so I like to say I'm probably tri-vocational. It's been that way since I was called to the church. But what it does is it helped put me in the marketplace. And I get to meet a lot of wonderful people, not only share the gospel, but also actually try to build bridges to really help the least, the last, and the lost among us.
The least, the last, and the lost.
We are adamant. I am adamant about that group. And because, it's easy to kind of overlook or neglect those who are not in our view all the time. It's not always that people intentionally do things, just don't know. But a longing that's been in my heart and the church as well is, how do we facilitate racial healing?
So tell me how Together Sumner started.
I was working on a doctoral thesis at Lipscomb University. I was doing their Doctor of Ministry program at the time. And I just kind of looked around. One of those classes that I took was on social justice. Now, I know that's a dirty word these days. If you mention the word social justice, the more comfortable word is biblical justice, because social justice connotes so many different things.
There's lots of words we shouldn't say right now, right?
Right. But I like the word social justice because I believe Jesus expounded justice in society, which is what social justice really is. And of course, one of the classes was a social justice class that had a traveling component to it. And so you had different students from all walks of life that took a trip. And this trip was to Alabama, Arkansas, and to Mississippi. Okay. And it was an experiential trip. And the whole goal was to establish partnerships and conversations around the thorny issue of racism. And I saw what that trip did to a whole lot of my white friends who just simply had no idea. Heard about slavery, of course, and we talk about that in the distant past, but no idea what does that mean to an African American or a person of color even now.
Yeah.
And the Lord just pricked my spirit. Hey, I am going to do a project in Gallatin, and the leaders in Gallatin, particularly church leaders, because I felt that that conversation should be advanced by Christians, and even particularly church leaders and pastors. So the goal was to see if First Baptist Church Gallatin on Winchester Street, to see if his leadership team would even want to be bothered with trying to walk alongside particularly our white brothers and sisters and see what racial healing and racial reconciliation would look like. And from that project grew into, looked at Gallatin, you talk to an African American, and things are not as well as we think. You talk to a Caucasian American, oh, we're fine. We don't have any challenges, any issues. In Gallatin, Sumner County, we are the model city, so to speak. Why is there this gap between the lived experiences of one group and the lived experiences of the other? And by nature, I just like trying to bring people together. And I was told it's not going to work. It won't work. The histories are too different. The cultures are too different. And particularly trying to get church people to do anything together outside of their tribe definitely is not going to work. So, Derrick, don't be bothered with that. And Gallatin, as long as everybody's quiet and remain in their place, so to speak, all is well. But you are about to put a scab off of something, and you're going to mess up your good name, etc. I wasn't concerned about a name as I was just about how do we make sure what we've seen happen in other areas of our country not happen in Gallatin. And I live in Gallatin. I love Gallatin. I love Sumner County. And I have found that when people know, most people, when they have been exposed to something, they look for ways to be a part of the solution. And I just found a lot of people just were not aware of struggles, concerns that their brothers and sisters of color may have to this day. And George Floyd, the incident with that, actually brought to the forefront a lot of things. And in my view, it cannot just be a political answer, although there are political ramifications, or just a social answer, although there are social ramifications. There has to be some spiritual awakening, spiritual desire to walk together with our brothers and sisters of all races. And so what I've noticed is there is this, to me, distraction away from or dismissal of it. It's not an issue. It was way back then. This is 2023 now. I mean, shucks, Derrick, we've had a black president. Interesting, although he's biracial, but we've had a black president, and we don't have those issues. And I often tell my friends, you do realize that it was just less than 60 years ago, not 100, not 200, but less than 60 years ago, where blacks was just free to go vote and not have to deal with for whites only and for blacks only signs. So I wanted to bring some awareness to it, and not only awareness, but on the ground level, grassroots level, how can we encourage people to live into this space of racial healing?
When we meet, we talk a lot about, it starts with family, and it starts with the conversations that we're having as a family. So I can tell you that my family conversations have improved. How many trips have you taken a group to Alabama now?
3 now. 3 trips.
So I went on the second one. I really would like to take my kids next year, if not the following year. We'll see. But it has changed the conversations we have inside our house on just awareness and in breaking out of that bubble that we have lived in. So I can tell you that there's good work being done there. What other kind of examples have you seen together, from these trips that have improved at least the conversations that are taking place?
I've seen that there has been more questions asked. I've seen white brothers and sisters want to know how policy work. They want to know, we often use the word systemic racism or institutional racism. That's another dirty word for others. But the question is, how do laws or the implementation of laws or lack thereof adversely affect groups of people historically and even to this day that people may not be aware of? So I had a gentleman to tell me, I just did not look at poverty in that manner. Think about it. I believe most people, they get up every day trying to go to work, trying to feed their kids, get the diapers changed, trying to pay the electric bill, gas bill, house note, not necessarily looking for someone to hate. So I don't think it's so much just the individual piece, although there are some exceptions, on the outskirts all over the place. But how are we structured? And when you call that into question, then you're also looking at who has seats of power and authority, and how is that power and authority wielded? And does it adversely affect others? And so one trip we took a city councilman, which was a good eye-opening for him to kind of connect the dots. Our country is over 200 and some years old now, and I personally think it's the greatest force for good on the planet. But to dare question us is almost seen as a look of disloyalty or unpatriotism, and just to see persons who were once adamant, no, we have no issues, we don't have those issues here now, just to hear them say, even ministers say, I need to take another look at this, because it does not check the political box. Even just education, the contributions of persons of color here in Gallatin, in Sumner County, in Tennessee, that people were not aware of, because the images that we often get many times paint persons in a negative light versus a positive light. So I've seen that education and persons, white brothers and sisters, looking to learn and to read and to understand and to ask questions. But of course, with anything, the politicization of it, I got this big debate now, around the other boogie word, CRT, which I think, to me personally, to go down that trail is really irrelevant. To me, the bottom line is, what are children exposed to that's appropriate for children? And do we tell the whole story that's appropriate for everyone along their development, etc.? And I think that some people want to keep us divided because we profit from division. If you start pulling us together, then some of those walls that we've placed has to come down. And unfortunately, the church has played a role. We've given theological cover. We've given theological cover to slavery in the past. We've given theological cover to why different races can't marry, etc. And we've even given theological cover for ongoing racism. And to be silent, to me, is to be a part of the problem.
So you wear a lot of hats.
I do.
You've done a lot of good work. You have a street named after you now in Gallatin. How do you rest? We have to have Sabbath. We have to have rest to continue to do good work. So how do you rest?
I'm listening to my wife more. I am a workaholic by nature. It was her idea to get me out of the country and to intentionally build in that time to make sure my rhythm is right. Probably since I was 12 or 13 years old, I've had multiple jobs doing something, but we're at our best when we're ministering or serving from our reserves. And to get those reserves, then we have to rest. And so, what I've decided to do now is to take a day, a Derrick Day, D-Day.
A Derrick Day.
Yeah, it's a
D-Day.
Derrick Day. Yeah, whereby and I could be at home. I could go to a mall. I could just be riding around. Just sitting still somewhere, stillness, with a journal. Just connecting back in with Derrick, and likewise, just a family day. We're empty nesters now, and so attending to Lori more, attending to my own health. I love sweets, and so not eating as much as I used to eat. I love running into a fast food place, so paying attention to my health, doing all those things that I neglected, and I'm still, I like to say, in recovery in that regard, but building it, prioritizing it into the fabric of what I do so that I can be around to do what I feel that the Lord is calling me to do.
So one of the highlights for me when we went on that trip is, tell people what we visited, just a few of the highlights. I mean, just the names of things that we visited.
Yeah, so what we would do with the trip from there, we'll go to Alabama normally, and we'll leave early on a Friday morning and come back Saturday evening, Saturday night, because we preachers have to be in our pulpits on Sundays, and we'll go through Montgomery, Alabama, Selma, Alabama, Birmingham, 16th Avenue Baptist Church, the Fred Gray Multicultural Center, EJI, Justice Initiative Museum, Tuskegee University, where Booker T. Washington was, the Airmen, several different stops that were pivotal in Alabama during the Civil Rights Movement. And we will have we'll stop at these stops, and if there were speeches that were given by very prominent individuals, we'll have people on the bus to do those speeches. We'll read some things prior to the trip, and then we'll engage in conversations that matter, how the prison system, the jail system kind of work, and just looking at these sites that are still up today, even if they're historic churches. And so from what I've gathered, it's been eye-opening to it. And you can Google one thing, but to actually go and be with like-minded brothers and sisters, it is an experience.
Yeah. So I've seen the movie Selma. Never thought I would. Why would someone go to Selma just to choose to go, right? And so it was a gift to walk across that. We did 2 by 2, one person of color and one white person. It was just a precious gift to walk across that bridge. I'll forever tell that story, forever remember it. You gave that to me. You also, you've helped me meet several dear friends that don't look the same as me. And I have accomplished that prayer. Well, God has given me the opportunity to answer that prayer. That's because of you and Together Sumner. So I appreciate that very much.
I often wonder, and I ask us, if it was us facing the same thing that those persons face as we walked across that Edmund Pettus Bridge, would we have had the courage to continue to walk? Yeah. It's just a bridge that's there now, but the significance of it is amazing.
Yeah, it is. Well, tell people how they can get involved with your church and in Together Sumner. You and I have some work to do to help people know about Together Sumner more. We need a website and such. But tell people when Together Sumner typically meets.
Okay. It's normally the fourth Tuesday, and we've normally been going to different places, but we're making the Gallatin Shalom Zone community room more of our kind of hub. It's been a loosely affiliated group of persons, regardless of who the person is. We normally meet at 11 o'clock. On that Tuesday, we're only in there for an hour at 12, up to 12, so that people can get back to work. So anyone interested can just come. Sure, we'll be back at the Shalom Zone the fourth Tuesday of August.
Okay.
And we normally give out a schedule at that meeting of persons who want to make sure that Gallatin remains one of the nicest cities in America, in Sumner County as well, and who has a passion for all of us being a part of this great experiment called the American
And
experiment.
if I want to come hear you worship or come hear you preach and worship with you, what are your church details?
You come First Baptist Church Gallatin, 290 East Winchester Street. That's in Gallatin. You can come at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning or 10:45 Sunday morning, or catch us on our website, www.firstbaptistgallatin. That's all one word, .org. That's firstbaptistgallatin.org. Make yourself at home. We would love to come. Does not matter. You can be white, Hispanic, Asian. Just come in and say, Jackson told me to come. And just make yourself at home.
Thank you. Thank you for the person you are. Thanks for joining us today. I love you. Thank you.
Love you too, and appreciate the invite.